Well, it's time for matchday 10 Premier League predictions from this 23-24 season. Today, we're going to look ahead to Aston Villa versus Luton, the game I'm going to be at on Sunday. And of course, we'll also have a quick look at all of our predictions for this weekend and a recap of our ones from last weekend, which weren't too bad at all. If you're looking forward to all of that, then please do put a thumbs up on the video. Do get your comments in as well with your predictions for matchday 10. And if you beat or match my score, as always, you will get a shout out in the next recap. But for now, a quick thank you to all of you for your support with the championship predictions and over on the Football Manager channel with the release of FM24. But we are going to focus on Aston Villa v Luton. And that means we've got to look back to the two games last weekend. Luton's thrilling comeback at Nottingham Forest, which was a fun away into being by the end of the game, and Aston Villa's 4-1 thumping of West Ham United, which was pretty scary from a Luton point of view. But let's start with the game that I was at on Saturday, Nottingham Forest versus Luton, a 2-2 draw which for a considerable amount of time looked like being a very poor game. For parts of the second it looked like it was going to be a comfortable Forest win, and thanks to taking a lifeline, it ended up being a jubilant day and a very nice journey home, albeit the train ride wasn't great. But let's have a look back at certain aspects of the game because again, with both of the goals conceded, they were avoidable. Defensive errors, particularly for the first, led to too much space being offered, and a free header for the second one. It's not the first time this season. Those defensive errors have to be eradicated eventually because otherwise it is going to cost Luton this season. But the fight back, the spirit, something that's never going to be doubted from our team. And to get two late goals against a side that are so strong at home, albeit with some mitigating circumstances, is a very important moment for Luton. Keeps them outside the relegation zone. In fact, it actually gains them a point on the three sides below who all lost, but it was an important one, and the goal threat and the attacking talent is still there from Luton. For the first time, we probably saw the real arrival of Ross Barkley, who had had moments and glimpses before his injury a few weeks ago, but now came on the bench with a proper cameo, and I felt really controlled and changed the game when he came on. We also saw a debut late on for Andros Townsend, who did put in a free kick for the first goal, but it was appalling and very poorly defended, so I don't think we can give too much credit for that. But ultimately, Luton fight back and put a crucial point on the board. We know away at Forest is a difficult place to go. We might be finding one of the few that's harder this weekend, but overall, the positive signs for Luton are that they've got a real attacking threat. Adebayo starting to find form, looked a threat against Spurs and scored against both Burnley and Nottingham Forest. Chio Ogbene is finding a real purple patch, and we also had a great chance with a Jacob Brown header, which probably should have been put either side of the keeper. So positives going forward, positives off the bench, a few negatives defensively. Of course, probably the biggest moment of the game for me, and one that's largely been forgotten now, was right at the end of the first half. Luton switched off after a break in play and almost conceded, and actually, Sangare, I think it was, missed an absolute sitter. It didn't get shown on Match of the Day or the Sky highlights for some reason, but it was a real gilt-edged chance, and if he'd put that away with one of the final kicks of the half, it probably would have been a very different match. But in the end, it feels like a victory come the 90th minute because coming back from 2 down in that manner, always going to be fantastic. And though Forest did make 3 changes which really helped at 2-0, almost giving the impression that they thought the game was won, Luton had to do their bit and they pushed relentlessly for the point. I talked about it all the way back on the opening day where Rob Edwards went really aggressive at 2-1 down against Brighton and it ended up costing us. We let in a couple more goals and we did lose in the end. But I did say that this season we're probably going to have the better goal difference of the 3 or 4 down there anyway. And the biggest thing for us is if we can do that 10 times, even if we concede 10 goals, if it nicks us a point or two during the season, it's worth it. And on this occasion, it very much showed why. Great to see Adebayo back in form. I do wonder if he'll get a go against Villa the way they play, because Villa have got a real central threat. 4 midfielders with 2 central ones drifting in from wide areas, 2 electric, quick and inform attacking players. It is going to be one hell of a frightening task. Villa made it 11 home wins in a row against West Ham, and like they did against Brighton, they blew them off the park. After a slightly slow start, where West Ham looked good, Villa eventually came out 4-1 winners. Ollie Watkins is an informed player. Douglas Luiz is a midfielder that scored in 6 home games in a row. And they've got plenty of talent across the team, albeit they have got an extra game on Thursday night. Now, to be fair, we've not seen too many signs of that affecting their league form, as Unai Emery now seems to be really pushing for what could be a Champions League place if they get in the top 5. But Aston Villa look fantastic. They've got a strong squad. They've got talent defensively and offensively. I wonder how Luton are going to set up in this game, because I just feel, looking at the way we've played in recent weeks, if we only play two in that midfield area, maybe we're going to get overrun here. So I wouldn't be shocked to see something different from Luton. We have at times this season seen a back four with almost a diamond in front of it. We've also seen the 3-5-2. I would suggest that we're maybe more likely to play one of those. Although, if he can keep Ogbene high on the right and maybe keep someone high on the left as well, then maybe we've got the option to push their fullbacks back, which is obviously a key threat. We know what the likes of Digne and Cash can do going forward, so if you can push them back or at least create and expose the space in behind them, it might give Luton a counter-attacking threat. But let's be brutally honest about this, even from a Luton point of view. This is an ominous task. It is a side that just cannot stop winning at home. It's a side that has got so much attacking talent under a very good manager. And I think even the most optimistic Luton fan would probably say, I don't expect to get a point from this one. The worry for us is obviously we've got Liverpool the week after and United the week after that. It's not the easiest spell of fixtures. However, I do feel that of the three, this is arguably even the hardest, playing Villa at Villa Park at the minute. Of course, a Sunday 2 p.m. kickoff because Villa play on Thursday night, and I guess part of it is going to depend on how they get on in that one. A quick spoiler alert, I am recording this before, because otherwise you would never see the video in time. But I'm going to go for an Aston Villa victory in this one, I'm afraid. I'd love to be wrong, and obviously I did get the Forest Luton one right in terms of outcome. I can't see anything other than a Villa win. They've obviously beaten far better sides very comfortably. I'm kind of hoping that they might rest a couple against us and see it as a chance to get closer to edging through in Europe on Thursday and still winning while resting a couple on Sunday. And maybe that does give us a bit of a sniff. But for now, I'm going to go for an Aston Villa victory. I'm going to go fairly comfortably by 3-1, but I do feel we'll expose them in wide areas in behind, and that's where I think our goal's going to come from. So that's my prediction for Villa versus Luton. You can let me know if you agree or disagree with that. But before we finish off here, we have also got to get through the rest of our weekend predictions. And before we do that, we need to have a look back to last weekend. Because for me, well, it was a pretty good effort, to be honest. I got 8 correct outcomes, including a perfect score. That came in the final game between Spurs and Fulham on Monday night. Overall, though, the Villa game is one of the only 2 I got wrong. I did think the West Ham might be able to cause a surprise the way they play. And the fact that they didn't has made me, well, a little more nervous going into this one. But I make it to double figures for the second week in a row, and this time 3 of you joined me. So level on points with 10 was W and G. You got the City score right, as well as lots of other correct outcomes. Kurt, you got 12 points, runner-up this week. Liverpool, City and Newcastle, all correct scores for you. And Steve, 13 points. Wolves, Chelsea and United, your perfect scores this weekend. Quick shout out to Chris Irregular as well. 9 correct outcomes out of 10, but just couldn't quite find the perfect score to get him into double figures. So that was last weekend and match day 9. Let's now move on to match day 10. And these are the scores that I have gone for. I've gone for the London derby at first to be nicked by Spurs on the road. Ange Postecoglou, the best ever start for a Premier League manager. They're top of the league and they're going to stay there with a 2-1 win. Chelsea and Brentford, I've gone to be a 1-1 draw. We've seen Brentford play well away at possession teams at the top before, City most namely. And I do feel that Chelsea, maybe after that good performance against Arsenal, will just drop off a little this weekend. Speaking of Arsenal, I've got them to beat Sheffield United 2-0. They have had their troubles with teams near the bottom in recent seasons, but you've got to win that one for us. Bournemouth versus Burnley, the disappointing one for Luton fans, because at least one of them's going to pick up points. I actually think Burnley are going to win this, and I go back a bit to the FA Cup tie last year. Burnley were fantastic against Bournemouth, who really struggled with their style. And to be fair, Bournemouth did gift their old manager a win last weekend, so I wouldn't be shocked if they gift one to Burnley as well. I've gone 3-1 for the visitors there. Wolves and Newcastle, I've gone for a 1-1 draw. Big game for Newcastle in Europe again midweek. West Ham Everton, I've gone for a bore fest, but West Ham to nick it 1-0. Villa Luton, you know, I've gone 3-1 to the hosts. Gone for Brighton to finally get back on track with a 3-0 win against Fulham. They look pretty poor against the pressing central areas against Spurs. I've gone for Liverpool to nick a 2-1 home win against Forest. I think that game will be closer than a lot are expecting. And then the Manchester derby to finish off. Quite often a pretty boring game, isn't it? I'm going to go for the Championship's favourite scoreline of 1-1, which I've actually gone for 3 times this weekend. I just don't think it's going to be a great game, with United in pretty average form and City not scoring too freely either. So those are my predictions for match day 10 in the Premier League. Do you agree or disagree? Let me know in the comments below. Give me your predictions if you haven't already. We had our midweek championship predictions the other day, and we'll be back with our weekend ones tomorrow. Make sure you keep your eyes peeled for those. If you enjoyed this episode though, please do put a thumbs up on it. Stay up to date with everything by subscribing and turning that notification bell on. There's a link to all the Football Manager stuff in the eye above. We are managing Luton Town on Twitch, which is going interestingly to say the least. And we've got another interview with a Luton legend coming out during the next international break. Thank you very much for watching as always. Your support is greatly appreciated. We'll see you back here next week as we preview Liverpool on Super Sunday.